Hello once again, welcome back to the channel. My name is Santi Louis III of SL3 Simulations. Today is quite special as I have been asked many times how I create my KORRY buttons. So today we're gonna discuss about how I create my buttons from the ground up. Let's start with the parts used in a KORRY button. Now, the very single most important component of the KORRY is the PCB, of course, because this is where the electronics go through and all the electronic components are soldered. Now, I designed this myself using ECADA software, and once the testing is okay, so I made a bulk order from China, GLC PCB. They make very good PCBs at a very affordable price, and of course you need all these you call these standoff pins, and of course we have resistors. Now I find that 50 ohms and 250 ohms are the best resistance for my KORRY. Now why is that? Why is the disparity of the resistance? And that is because not all LEDs have the same intensity in brightness. For example, if you use white, clear white, or the green for instance, they have very high intensity as compared to, let's say, yellow and red for instance. So for the high intensity LEDs like white and green, I use a 250 ohms resistance for that. And for the weaker yellow or red, I use 50 ohms. Either 50 or 100, but I find 50 is not so high resistance as the light has to go through this laminated and tinted lens. So the 50 ohms and 250 ohms, I find there is a even intensity of both lights. And then of course the LED, they come in different colors except blue. I don't use blue because if you use blue, they don't look realistic. They have a very deep blue, it doesn't look right. So what I do, instead of using blue, I use a clear LED, but use a photographic gel such as this one. It comes in multiple sheets, so I just cut a bit of this, cut a small piece and insert it to whichever side is the blue required. And of course we have the buttons. Now in the A320 KORRY system, there are two types of buttons for the KORRY. One is a momentary, that means it doesn't lock. You press and it springs back to off. And we have a self-latching switch. You push, it locks to on, and then you push back to release back to off position. And then of course we have the housing. The housing is made up of two main parts. First is the inner drawer or the inner sleeve. I chose to have this printed in China from GLC PCB. If you order in quantities, you can save a bit on costing and of course the shipping. So it comes like this, and I have to paint this with polyurethane black, flat black, so it looks like this. Now, as you noticed, we have here the outer shell, of course, which houses everything. The PCB, the inner shelf, and of course this shell is mounted behind the panel. Now, this is my standard mount. And you notice I have another one here. Just recently, I have been requested by some guys to fabricate a KORRY that fits into a Hispapanel panel. Later we come to that. So at the moment I have a standard mount and a Hispapanel compatible mount. And then of course we have the lens, which is about 16.2 somewhere there by 16.2. It is made of translucent 2mm acrylic, which is this one. Of course they are laser cut, and once they are laser cut, I have to peel off this side here and then batch paint them first with a primer, of course, followed by the flat black. By the way, I use polyurethane paints, flat polyurethane paints, 1K quality. That means it's more durable. It's automotive paint. Now, of course, after it is painted, I have to work on the labeling, and of course, labeling depends on which KORRY buttons are required. So, labeling, of course, is done by laser engraving, and I use Inkscape to do that and engrave them accordingly. So after engraving, it looks like this, which looks okay, except that the real KORRY doesn't have a very clear high contrast visible markings on them. In a real KORRY, if it is unlit, you should barely read the labels on them. The way I can imitate that look is to use matte headlight tint for car use. I don't know if you are familiar with that. It looks like this. I bought this online. Styling of cars where the headlights are tinted with matte black like this. Light still can go through from the other side. Paste the engraved pieces on it, and the result is this. So as you can see, it looks almost like the real labeling of the KORRY button. So a finished KORRY should look something like this. Now it's not just the tint, of course. I have to apply a layer of flat clear polyurethane 1K coat, and that will create a matte surface and a less glossy surface, and of course it also adds a bit of protection. So once everything is soldered into the PCB, it looks something like this. So we have the resistors, we have of course the switch at the center, and the two annunciator LEDs, and behind is the pin. Now let me explain what the pin does here. We have 4 pins, and the orientation is always like this. So when the KORRY is facing you, the pins should be on the left side, like so. And that is to make it much more reasonable and logical, to indicate that the first pin on the top is for the upper LED, followed by the next pin. The second pin from the top is for the button. Third pin is for the lower annunciator LED, and the bottom pin is ground. So for KORRY buttons that don't have upper annunciator, like this for example, this is the terrain on ND, where you see 2 circles that actually indicates there's nothing there to expect. That means we don't have the upper annunciator. So when you look at the pin, see, I still use 4 pins, but I cut off the pin that is unused. So similarly, if you don't have a button for the KORRY, for instance, some of the KORRY you see on the A320 are just indicators, therefore they don't have buttons. So in that case, you wouldn't see a second pin. So the pin corresponds to the logical positioning of the indicators. Top pin is the upper annunciator, followed by the button, followed by the lower annunciator and the ground. So now that the soldering is done, so it's time to test the electronics. So first, let's test the LED. So this is how I test them. I put a corresponding pin on the breadboard and insert the KORRY here, like so. So with a variable voltage power supply here, set the negative to the ground, and we have a good upper annunciator, a good lower annunciator. And for the button, okay, so this switch is good. Right, so after testing the electronics of the KORRY button, it's time to put together the inner shell. So this button pusher goes underneath the shelf like that. Right, so when all these are ready, it's time to install the electronics into the inner shelf. Okay, first of all, we have to attach the lenses. Here our example is the standard fold and on. Fold is orange and on is white. So we put it here. This is measured a little bit tighter so that we can push it right through like that. Okay, so this is our lens mounted there. So orange goes to yellow. Actually, the yellow LED produces the orange color light. There are orange LEDs, but if you choose that orange LED, it produces a near red light, which is not as realistic as the yellow light is. So we insert it like this. Take note of the fitting on the button, like so. Right, and do it on the other side. We have yeah, fold and on. Okay, insert it like so. So in goes the electronics, orange to orange. Can you hear that click there? So you see it has some resistance already, but I don't see a reason why you have to pull this off during normal operation, so just let it be like that. It holds itself even when tilted downwards in the case of the overhead panel. So you just pull this off if you need to replace anything. Right, so there you go. Now you may have noticed in the introduction of the video we have two mounts here. Okay, the one on the right is my standard mount. It also uses a 19 by 19 millimeter hole, which is the actual measurement of the real Airbus KORRY hole. This is very recent. I designed this for customers that use Hispapanels. Now this is how they differ. On the left we have the Hispapanel. I purposely created this to simulate the Hispapanel. The front 3mm acrylic has a 22 by 22 millimeter hole, while the rear support also 3mm is 19 by 19. My version, both panels front and rear have the same 19 by 19 hole, so that there is no offset like this. So first let's install my version. The outer shell, the locking slot here is on the top, so it goes like that. So you have to mount this behind like so, and for my version, this thing has to be glued permanently on the rear panel like that. I don't see any reason why you have to remove this in the future, because anyway you're just interested on the electronics on the inside. So this outer shell can be fixed there permanently with the same glue, and this thing goes in like that, and there you go. I'm just holding the case with my hand here because I didn't use glue, but this is how it should look like. Of course, this is a backlight ready with the rear panel being clear, so you can have some engraving here in the case of the overhead where the hole is has some outline that can be used as backlight. Okay, now for the Hispapanel. So they share the same dimensions as far as the inner electronic goes, because they have the same 19 by 19. So this thing goes in from the front, not from the rear, which I think is a good design, because if you print this with a little bit of tension, you don't have to apply any glue at all. So it goes from the front like this, and you just pull this behind, and you can hear that squeaky noise there. That's the tension, as this one is almost have zero tolerance with a 19 by 19 millimeter, so you can see the mounting there. So with that, in goes the inner electronic, which can be a bit tight sometimes, but with a bit of push, see, there you go. So we have, sorry about that. Okay, we have this version. This is my version of the KORRY. And we have the Hispapanel version right here. So it functions the same, it looks the same, with the exception that the Hispapanel have a slightly larger face due to the 22 by 22 millimeter cut. My version has a 19, I think it's 19.1 or something, but you can you can have your panels have 19 by 19 because the outer shell is designed to fit there anyway. So what is this last piece here? This is actually to hold the internal electronics, because when you push it in, there's nothing to hold it. If it is a bit loose, it will fall down when it is tilted downwards, or when you push it like so, it comes out from the other side. So this piece here is actually a lock that goes into this hole here. What you do is you push the assembly inward. That's to ensure that the PCB actually is hitting against the four locking tabs here on the corners. Push it in and you insert the tab like so. You hear that click, and now you have a sturdy KORRY assembly without even applying glue, thanks to how the Hispapanel is designed on the panel holes. There's a catch though, because my KORRY has a 2.5 millimeter travel, and that is realistic because the real KORRY actually has a travel when you push the button. For this button, this is a self-latching button, so you push it, it locks by itself. With the amount of space that is left after we install the case, the button looks like this when you push it. so it is a bit more recessed. I'm not sure if you find that unrealistic or if you can accept that. That's fine. So you push it again, it comes out. Of course, for the other type of switch, which is the momentary button, when you push it, it comes out. For the other version here, sorry because I'm not applying any glue here. It looks like this. So when you push it, that is the pressed position. Push it again, comes out like so. And of course, now the question is, how does it look like when it's lit? Let's give it a try. Okay, let's try both lamps here. And there you go. Oops. Okay, fold and on. So what about just the on? Okay, that's the on, and this is the fold. There you go. Now this is what I'm talking about. The camera phone is the phone's camera is a bit too sensitive to light. So as you can see, when I lit the fog indicator, you can see there's a bit of orange that bled off towards the lower annunciator. But if you actually see the button live, like how I see it now, it's almost negligible. I don't see much of that light flooding towards the other side, as well as the on indicator. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Now, since this KORRY button is I'm selling this, it is commercially available in my store. Links in the description below. I am sorry to say that I am not sharing the designs, the PCB and all that, but I am sure that what I have revealed here in this video is more than enough to provide you with a guide and insights on how to come up with a similar design if you like it. So SL3 simulations KORRY button, this is how it looks like, and this is how it is built. I'm not sure if I have covered everything. If you have any questions or comments or any suggestions, or perhaps you have a better way of doing things as opposed to how I do it, please leave a comment down below. And of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, I would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe and like button. It helps the channel a lot. That's about it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you find it useful. So I see you around on my next videos. Have a good one.